stage and take their seats. I invite Ms. R.A.T. Sayani, Ms. Anshdeep Kaur, Dr. Banerjee Chakka. Moving forward, moving forward with the session, I would like to introduce our panelists. It is our privilege to welcome Ms. R.A.T. Siani, Chief of Mission for UNHCR in India and Maldives, as the chair and moderator for this session. Ms. Siani has worked for 30 years on refugee protection at country, regional, and headquarters level in Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa and Asia Pacific regions, including in emergency operations. Prior to taking her assignment in India, she served as Assistant Representative Protection with UNHCR Yemen and as Assistant Chief of Mission with UNHCR Libya. Areti has also served as Senior Protection Advisor with UNHCR's Regional Bureau for the Middle East and North Africa and in policy advisory capacity on responses to mixed population flows in various countries. We welcome you, ma'am, to the second session. Next, we have Dr. Manoj Kumar Sinha, who would be joining us online. He is currently working as Vice Chancellor of Dharmashastra National Law University, Jabalpur. Prior to joining DNLU, he served the Indian Law Institute as its director. His areas of specialization are human rights, constitutional law, international humanitarian, and refugee law. He has published extensively in the fields of international law, international relations, constitutional law, etc. He has been delivering lectures on a regular basis at a number of institutions, including law schools in India and overseas, UGC Academic Staff College, the ICRC, the Ministry of External Affairs, and the Ministry of Environment and Forests. He also serves as a member on the editorial boards of several reputable national and international journals. Next, we have Ms. Anshdeep Kaur. She is a law graduate from the University of Delhi and has worked in the field of refugee protection for over 4 years. Before taking charge as the External Relations Associate, Anshdeep was in the Legal Protection Unit of UNHCR India. In the past, as an advocate, she has represented refugees and asylum seekers in cases of immigration detention in courts across Delhi NCR. In addition to her work as a lawyer and refugee protection professional, Ashdeep has a decade of experience in the advertising industry where she created communication for various multinational brands. Next, on the panel, we have Dr. Uma Mahesh Satyanarayana, who again will be joining us online. He is the principal of Ramaya College of Law, Bangalore, an accomplished academic, administrator, and legal educator. Dr. Satyanarayana has played a pivotal role in shaping legal education by encouraging research and inquiry into pressing social and humanitarian issues. His work reflects a strong commitment to bridging the gap between law and social realities, with a particular emphasis on issues of migration, displacement, and vulnerable communities. Now, I would like to request our Professor Dr. Sudhir Verma to introduce other panelists.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is again, I would like to reiterate that it is indeed a pleasure to speak about and introduce eminent speakers in this very important area of international refugee law, that is responding to mixed movements. I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Sudhakar TVGNS. Sir did his graduation, bachelor's degree, BA in economics, uh, and obtained law degree LLB, Masters of Law degree LLM in constitutional law and administrative law from Nagarjuna University. He secured first rank in the Nagarjuna University in LLM. Out of his tenacity for the subject of international law, he preferred to write his LLM dissertation in international law area titled Role of International Court of Justice in the Development of International Law, for which he secured first place in the university for writing the dissertation. He went on to obtain his MPhil and PhD in international law, especially international refugee law from Center for International Legal Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. His PhD topic was protection of human rights in non-international armed conflicts and the emerging international criminal law, which is done from JNU. He joined West Bengal NUJS in the year 2003 as a member of the faculty. He actively involved in both teaching and research. He taught a number of subjects at undergraduate degree LLB level and postgraduate LLM level. He has guided many LLM dissertations, MPhil degrees, and PhDs awarded under his supervision. Currently, he is teaching public international law, law of international organizations, and international criminal law at master's level. He's guiding a number of LLM students and doctoral candidates, which I've already spoken about. He has administrative and other responsibilities at NUJS, like, for example, he's a coordinator of School of Public Law and Governance, SPLG, and a member of Academic Council, Faculty Advisory Committee, Doctoral Committee, Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, Internal Complaints Committee, etc. He's an expert member of UG Board of Studies in Law of Vidyasagar University. That is his association beyond NUJS, as well as an expert member for UGBOS in Law and member of Doctoral Committee at VIT-AP School of Law. He's a Chancellor's nominee for the University of Calcutta, member of Editorial Committee, International Journal of Law and Policy, Review of WBNUJS, member of Honorary Board of Advisory Committee for the Indian Journal for Social, Legal and Contemporary Affairs, a peer-reviewed law journal from Jamia Millia Islamia, reviewer for Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law RGNUL Student Law Review, and a member of advisory board of VIT-AP. He's a member of American Society of International Law, European Society of International Law, Société Européenne de Droit Internationale. I'm sorry, my French accent may be bad. And Asian Society of International Law, Asian SIL. We are indeed in awe to read all this, Professor Sudhakar, and you're most welcome at VIT AP School of Law. Moving ahead, I would like to introduce Professor Srinivas Burra. I could not find much about Professor Burra on a social media profile and even SAU website, but I think he's a man who needs no introduction. He's a critical international law teacher. He's actually a teacher which I personally look up to. He's a teacher who has shaped me as a teacher also. And he's an associate professor at South Asian University. He's completed his education. He's completed his education, especially MPhil and PhD, from Center for International Legal Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And he has had a career entirely in South Asian University as a teacher. He writes on critical issues of international law and has been at the forefront in shaping the academics like myself and others, the young academics in international law. He's the one who has actually taken the slogan seriously, that take international law seriously. And we are of course very grateful that sir is with us in an online format. I think we forgot to mention one thing, that first we will continue with the offline presentations, and after that we'll invite our online speakers to speak. So that would be nice for smooth flow of our session. Next, we have our esteemed dean, which if I would have been a student, I would have said our beloved dean, Professor Banerjee Chakra. And we are anyway very grateful to him for organizing this very important and very sensitive topic in international refugee law. And I would really want to I would really want to speak the words of our Honorable Vice Chancellor that this is indeed a very good opportunity for you as students to hear the esteemed speakers whom you usually may not get chance generally as a law student. And I think you should learn from these experiences and engage in an otherwise very no, a topic that is very much progressed in international refugee law, that is with respect to migrants, mixed movements, but it has over time has drawn an attention in contemporary international refugee law, and I'm very sure that we will have Dr. Areti, who will be chairing this session and coordinating this session and steering it us forward in the discussion. Thank you so much, ma'am. We are indeed very much blessed to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. We have already touched upon the issue of mixed migration and in starting the discussion, and we have very important presentations ahead of us, perhaps 4 points to say to raise at this stage. The first one is that mixed migration is a fact. It is happening. Most movements at the moment are mixed. Mixed movements are large in scale and they are very complex. And the answers, they raise specific challenges both to governments as well as to receiving societies, with the answers lying in the intersection of different bodies of law: international humanitarian law, international human rights law, international refugee law, transnational criminal law, as well as international labor law. So lots to think about, lots of issues to consider. And without further ado, I would like to ask first, I'm just looking because the program at the moment is in sequence of different themes, starting with the complexities presented by mixed movements. This is an online presentation, as well as the complexities, again, a second presentation on complexities um, uh, presented by mixed movements. Uh, it seems that we cannot start and speak with you um, on the role of an effective asylum system in responding to mixed movements. And then we will follow with Dr. Sudhakar, TBG and S. So over to you, and speak first. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody is recharged after lunch rather than being sleepy after lunch. And to tell you honestly, this topic, which is mixed movement, there's a reason that Miss Yani is the chair of this session, and she's the one who has actual experience of working on this very complex topic. So I'm going to try to be as short as possible and try to explain to you, because I'm the first speaker, re-explain number one, what are mixed movements? And then I will, like some of the speakers did in the learned speakers did in the first session, raise some questions for you to think about, you know. So, first of all, it's not new. Mixed migration, people, as long as they have existed, people have been on the move. So we don't have any reasons to be surprised about it today. The reasons, however, that we should be surprised about is, as Ms. Siani mentioned in her keynote address, is that there are 120 conflicts raging in the world. So that the reason people are moving are getting more and more complex. But the fact that people have been moving is not new, right? So as the definitions have developed and circumstances have gotten complicated, so have these movements. And why that needs to be spoken about is because our response will change in view to who is it who is moving, right? That is why we call it a mixed movement. So people move for a variety of reasons. They move for social reasons. You could have family abroad. You may want to stay with them. You may move for that reason. People move for economic reasons. People move because of natural disasters. That's also one kind of forcibly displaced persons who are being forced into moving because of natural disasters and climate. And here I would also like to mention, because earlier in the day someone approached me and said that they would like to talk about climate refugees. So, right at the outset, let me introduce you to one very important source I find very important. It's called the UNHCR Master Glossary of Terms. So, it explains to you what terms are legally in existence, because we're law students, we need to be careful about this. So, the term that we should be referring to is a person displaced in the context of disasters and climate change, right? Because the refugee is a very technical term. It is very limited term, and we need to apply it as such so that there is clarity who is it that we're referring to. So who is a refugee? It's a question. Yeah, I come from UNHCR. I want to know from the students, who do you think is a refugee? Anyone? Anything? I'm sure people do know, but there's shyness. Yeah. Yes, please. Thank you so much. So this is why it's very important to ask you questions so that I can answer and tell you that a refugee is a person who is moving in a very particular context. Economic migrants are not refugees. People displaced by disasters are also not refugees. Now, who is a refugee? A refugee is a person who, owing to a well founded fear of persecution, for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion, the movement has to be, first, there is a well founded fear of persecution. Then, persecution has to be on these five grounds, which we call in UNHCR, we call it the convention grounds, okay? And is outside the country of his or her origin, and are, due to such fear, are unwilling to or unable to return to it. This is the most important thing to understand when we speak about mixed movements, that this person who is a refugee cannot go back to their country of origin. Okay? It's that you are an Indian, you are out of India, and you cannot go back to India, right? That is why the UNHCR exists, to provide protection to such people who cannot avail the protection of their own countries, right? So a refugee is moving only on grounds of fear of persecution, and they are outside of their land of origin, country of origin. Now, who is a migrant? There is no formal legal definition of a migrant. However, what is generally accepted is that an international migrant is someone who changes their country of usual residence irrespective of the reason for migration or legal status. Hmm? Did we understand this critical difference? No? Okay. Refugee is moving on grounds of persecution outside of his country of origin, cannot go back to his country of origin. A migrant is outside the country of their origin for any other reason, and therefore can return to their country of origin because they are not afraid of persecution in that country. So a migrant can return to that country. This is the critical difference between a refugee and a migrant. That the migrant can avail protection of their country of origin and a refugee cannot. Okay? So, what's a mixed movement? The cross border movement of people, generally in an irregular manner, involving individuals and groups who travel alongside each other using similar routes, as Ms. Siani said. So they are going to come by the same routes. The refugees and the migrants are going to come by the same routes, and they're going to come for different reasons. It's not as simple as segregating them that, in this room, everybody who's wearing black and white, the lawyer's clothes, okay, is a migrant. Everybody else is a refugee, right? So, can you see the numbers here? There are very few refugees, and mostly there are migrants. But here you're able to tell them apart because of different clothes. But when they're coming together, how do you tell them apart? If you don't have an effective asylum system, how do you identify who is in need of international protection and who can be sent back to their country of origin? We can't tell them apart without an effective asylum system. So, while refugees and asylum seekers must account for only a small proportion of the global movement of people, they frequently travel alongside migrants. Like I'm saying, they travel together, right? Most movements, like Miss Siani was telling you, are mixed movements today. Many of these movements are irregular. Now, what do we mean by irregular movements is when you want to travel from country A to country B, you and me, we'll have the privilege of a passport. We will go, we will apply for a visa, we will go to another country. These people are not traveling through regular means like visas and passports, right? Sorry. So they are traveling through irregular means. They lack valid documentation. And when they lack documentation, what will happen to them? If you're in another country without a valid visa and without passport, what will happen to you? You'll be sent back to your country. Hmm? But you can be sent back to your country because you're a migrant. But ma'am here is a refugee. Can she be sent back to her country? No, can't be sent back to her country. But she doesn't have visa to live here. So what happens to her? Hmm? Detained. How long? Indefinitely. Yeah. So, another thing that happens, one of the fears of not having an effective asylum system is that those who are in need of international protection, like we were talking earlier about non-refoulement, which is customary norm of international law, they can be refooled to their country of origin because you don't know who you are sending back. Is this a person who's a refugee? Is this a person who's an asylum seeker? Is this a person who is migrant? You are sending back everyone, and therefore there's a threat of refoulement, right? Then there is threat, like you yourselves told me, of indefinite detention. Then there is another threat, security of the nation. If you don't have an effective asylum system, and you don't identify who is coming into your border, the security of the country is also under threat. Who all are familiar with the JJ Act, the Juvenile Justice Act? Yeah. So, the Juvenile Justice Act, which you will at some point in your law degree read about, is an amazing piece of legislation which treats all children as children and not as foreigner children or as Indian children. It treats children as children, right? So, if you don't have an effective asylum system, what happens is that the child, of course, is being treated like a child, but the adult is being treated as an illegal immigrant. The child gets separated from the parents. Child goes into institutional care, what we call care homes, and the parents go to detention center. Now, parents are in detention center how long? Like you all said, indefinitely they are in detention. So this child is in care home how long? Indefinitely. Separated from the parents, right? So there is this thread of institutional care becoming a detention like situation for the child, which is against the principles of the Juvenile Justice Act, which talks about the best interest of the child. The child was separated in the best interest of the child, but now is in a prolonged detention like situation, right? So, this is what happens when we don't have an effective asylum system in place. So, how is it that, you know, an asylum system contributes to an effective mixed an effective asylum system contributes to a mixed migration movement? Fair. And I'll mostly be reading out because these are some beautiful quotes I found while preparing for this lecture. As I told you, I am not the person with practical experience of this, very little practical experience, and Miss Siani is there. So, fair and efficient asylum systems are crucial to ensure non discriminatory access to asylum and for states to fully comply with international legal protection principles, right? Because everybody, every state has an obligation to non refoulement. But if there is no asylum system, there will be no identification, people will be refooled. Strong and efficient asylum systems, what they help us do is they decrease the load on the country. There's been a lot of talk in the first session about burden responsibility, but the point is that the numbers of refugees are as few as the numbers of non-lawyers in this room. So if you know who to keep, you can send back the rest, giving respect to their rights. Everybody has the right to Article 14, Article 21, again, under the Constitution of India, as held in the case of Chandrama Das as well. So everybody has that right, but you will know who to keep, and therefore you can reduce the burden on the country. And Areti, I will take one last minute to speak about a whole of route approach. So just to tell you in passing, in closing, there was this when graduated from law college and came to practice refugee law. There was a Rohingya family with three minors and their parents who was arrested in Delhi. The parents were in jail and the minors were in care homes. And the girl was 12 years old and it was found that she was pregnant. And it was a very difficult situation for me to take, it being my first case. And at that time, what I started thinking about was that, we always speak about asylum systems and asylum systems being effective in the country of, in the country of asylum. But what is required really to build an effective system is protection in the country of origin, protection in the country of transit, and protection in the country of asylum. So, all three countries together, only when we have this in place can we truly have refugee protection. And that is what is UNHCR calling a whole of route approach, which it has developed along with the IOM. So I encourage all of you to go to refworld.org. That is our encyclopedia for refugee related documents, refworld.org. And you can please read about whole of route approach developed by UNHCR and IOM there. And that's in short what I had to tell you about effective asylum systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, for the thought-provoking and interactive intervention also. So I would like to ask Dr. Stefan TVGNS to join at the podium and to talk about regional cooperation in managing mixed migration, lessons from cross-border initiatives. The floor is yours, Dr. Sudhakar. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, the topic which is given. So, am I audible to all of you? Yeah. So, regional cooperation in managing the mixed migration. So, mixed migration, as my previous speaker, as she was pointing out, so mixed migrations, it is not a new phenomenon. So, since long time, we used to find the mixed migratory movements across the globe. So, now we are witnessing UNHCR threshold. It is somewhat expanded. So it is focusing not only upon the refugee protection, it is also focusing upon the other forms of the migratory movements, the migrating persons, in order to extend protection in a broader sense, extending the protection across various sections of the society. Like, so the refugee protection, asylum seekers, this is as part of the UNHCR mandate. So it is able to dispense ever since the institution it was created. And in terms of the other forms of the migratory movements, like the migration, it is happening for variety of reasons, like the climate change. So migratory movements are happening, environmental degradation, climate change. So we call them environmental refugees. Environmental refugee, the term, it is not within the ambit of the 1951 convention. But since these migratory movements also similar to the refugee movements, because why refugee is crossing the national frontier, the moment the individuals they cross the national boundaries in search of the international protection, and then we expect the individuals they will secure the protection in the country of destination or in the country of transit, whatever it may be, because in the country of origin they were not in a position to secure protection. So that's why in search of the protection they may be moving. And then similar attributes we can find in respect of the climatic refugees, because of the change of the climate for the better sustainability. The people are migrating across the globe. So because of the desertification, because of the deforestation, various factors we can attribute for the climatic changes. And apart from that, to have a better economic life, so people they may be migrating in search of the better economic life. Technically, these are left out from the purview of the Refugee Convention 1951. We consider them as irregular migrants. So legal migration, irregular migration, both they keep on happening. So the mixed migratory movements we are able to see in respect of the various reasons. Simply for not having legal recognition in terms of the migratory movement, we cannot punish them, keeping them, I mean, subjecting them to the arbitrary detention. That is not expected. So we have to look into the factors in a compassionate way, and we have to examine these cases at least to extend the minimum protection. So, as a matter of the minimum humanitarian protection to extend, that is as part of our ensuring the human security. So, along with the refugee protection, what is required? We need to extend the protection of individual rights in respect of all the forms of migratory movements, the mixed migratory movements of the persons, whether they may be the asylum seekers or refugees, whether they may be the migrant workers, and as well as whether they may be some other form of migratory movements. So, in respect of all the transnational movements, the transnational migratory movements, they have to be extended, they have to be protected. And then, what is required to extend the protection? So, regional cooperation, so states together, they have to come together and they have to talk out the program of action. So, to extend protection to the mixed migratory persons, we have to ensure the right to dignity of the individuals. Those are on the migratory move. Particularly, we have to protect the vulnerable groups like the migrant workers, because the Migrant Workers Convention 1990, that has to be ratified by number of countries, that will ensure the protection of the migrating workers. And also, when the migratory movements are happening, there are certain vulnerable groups. We can take women and children because they are found as the victims and they have been subjected to discriminatory treatment, and they have been subjected to various forms of atrocities, including the sexual offenses committed against these vulnerable groups. Because in order to secure the migration, the migratory migrating population, they are taking the help of various channels. They are approaching the smugglers, smuggling the migrant, and accordingly they are landing in the hands of the traffickers, because we have two protocols as part of the organized crime 2000. The one important protocol is, that is, smuggling of the migrants. So this protocol has to be ratified. We have to ensure states, they need to ratify the protocol, and states, they have to ratify the another protocol, that is protecting women and children from the form of trafficking, human trafficking. So human trafficking of women and children, and that protocol also need to be ratified by the states. So these are some of the steps we need to ensure through the regional cooperation. So through the regional institutions, along with the FX body for extending refugee protection, UNHCR, we are expecting both at the global level, UNHCR, and at the regional level, regional institutions and states, they will take up the plan of action for extending the protection to the mixed form of the migratory movements. So, in terms of the burden sharing, talking about the burden sharing, since morning, most of us we are talking about the burden sharing. So, whether state has to bear the burden or whether the burden has been shifted under the 2018 Global Compact program is concerned, that the burden sharing, it is shifted to the private partners. So, not only that, we have to examine what are the circumstances why these migratory movements are happening. What is the particular reason? Because for the entirety, we have to blame the global north, because most of the migratory movements, they are happening across the global south. Because of the policies and practices of the global north, the global south is victimized. It is facing so much of hardships, because 90% of the refugee movements, the refugee population, we can identify across the poorer countries, mainly the African and Asian countries. They are witnessing the 90% of the refugee population, and as well as other forms of the migratory movements, like in better such of the, I mean, in such of the better economic life. So why people are migrating? Because of economic disparities, they are prevailing in their domestic society, and they want to go to the extent of crossing the frontier. By that way, they can they can secure the better life. For this, also we can blame the northern states, because the centuries years of colonization and resulted into the various social movements, and as well as the prevailing state of a cold war till 1990s. It resulted into the outbreak of number of armed conflicts. So various armed conflicts as part of the proxy war between east and west. And then so these proxy wars, so armed conflicts, they were fueled by the Soviet Union and the United States. As a result of it, there is so much of underdevelopment in respect of the third world countries. As a third world scholar, so I emphasize the states belonging to the global south, they require so much of assistance as a matter of ensuring burden sharing. So burden sharing not only among the global south, because now what is happening, what is expected by the northern states, global south, it has to manage on its own, because exactly that is happening in Africa, because African states, they are cooperating among themselves at the regional level. So in order to share the burden, as well as in order to go to the extent of recognition of the mixed form of migratory movements and extending protection, the wider form of the protection. So already we have seen various conferences they were held right from the 2010 onwards. So in the Tanzania and in Dar es Salaam, the African states, they met and agreed upon to cooperate themselves. Apart from that, there is no significant amount of financial assistance from the northern states to the global south. That is very much required, very much expected as a matter of ensuring global justice, global cooperation, as well as regional cooperation in better management of the mixed form of migratory movements. That is very much required. And then the what we say, the the recognition of the burden sharing across the globe, that is very much required. Not only financial assistance, even in respect of the sharing the burden, the refugee burden or migratory burden. So that is completely disappearing. Even in respect of the refugee protection is concerned, third country resettlement, it is one of the three expected durable solutions. Previously, the major countries, the economically powerful countries, you take Canada, Australia. So these countries, they used to have a large amount of quotas for the third country resettlement. Now they are shrinking. The quotas are shrinking and almost they are disappearing. So in terms of the acceptance of the third country resettlement is concerned, so they are shutting the doors and they don't want to allow the refugee population to settle down. So the option of the third country resettlement, it disappears. Then where is the burden sharing? So how regional cooperation, it can be extended, it can be ensured, and it can be better managed. So states on their own at the national level, they are expected to take up the task and manage the crisis situation along with the neighboring states. So at the national level, at the bilateral level, at the regional level, states are expected to take the necessary steps. And then what is the contribution of the global north? Previously, the societies, the global south societies, they were suppressed and oppressed by the policies of the global north. And these countries now, so they are emphasizing upon the cooperation among themselves, the global south. So in respect of the best example I can tell in terms of the climatic refugees concerned, some of the European countries, they have You take Sweden, you take Finland. Previously, they have better policies for some time for accepting the environmental refugees or the climate refugees. And now they have taken U-turn. So they completely disregarded the once available policies. So policy for the protection for granting the refugee status owing to the climatic changes. So at least the global north, it has to understand the problems of the global south, particularly the economic migrants are concerned. They can be better used as a matter of generating workforce labor. So they can be adopted and they can be utilized as a matter of ensuring the workforce, utilizing the workforce in order to secure more benefits out of the migratory persons in terms of in search of in terms of the persons those in search of the better the advanced economic life, and they can be adopted in their domestic society and they can be utilized as part of ensuring as a matter of labor force. So these are the some of the steps to be taken as a matter of ensuring regional cooperation as well as global cooperation as a matter of ensuring the global justice. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sudhakar, for a very interesting presentation and touching upon many issues, root causes of mixed migration, issues of terminology, as as well as the treatment. It's not working. Just to repeat, thank you once again, Dr. Sudhakar, and for the very interesting presentation touching upon issues of root causes of mixed migration, the role of climate change, as well as economic disparities and conflict, issues around terminology, but in particular in the context of people moving because of climate change or natural disasters, as importantly the treatment of of persons caught in mixed movements and issues around regional cooperation and solidarity to address such movements. Without further ado, we go to the next speaker on if the connection works. I don't know if they can hear me because they are not online. That one's here. Just go ahead because that works. So we go to the next speaker online, and if I may ask Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh to join us. Okay, so if we could ask Dr. Srinivas Bura to join us to on the topic of unpacking the unique challenges faced by women, children, persons with disability, LGBTQ plus, and other vulnerable persons undertaking cross-border movements. Dr. Bura, the floor is yours. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Bura, I hope you have heard, you were able to hear me. Over to you, please. Thank you.
Dr. Srinivas, Dr. Srinivas. Yeah, Manojji. Now, Dr. Srinivas is it okay? Yeah, thank you, Manojji. Just a minute. Yes, we can hear you, sir. 1 minute. 1 minute. Telling that, I think that mic is not me. You have to speak and tell them. It helps find that distance. Conversing. Keep conversing. Sir, can you hear me? Dr. Sharmas. Srinivas, can you hear us? Srinivas? Unmute this one. Srinivas, sir, can you hear us? So, on the day after Christmas. So, second, the 24th. Yeah. Budget fund. Can you guys keep talking to him? Keep talking to us so that we will know affect what to do. What? That's what is not able to do. Or it's not able to reach. No, it's part of the thing.
Hello, can you hear me?
So you can use this.
Okay, excellent. So, as you can see, technology is not on our side, and as we are trying to, the colleagues are trying to see what is possible. Let us use the time for some questions and answers. And we had two excellent presentations which covered so many different issues when it comes to mixed movements. So, who would like to take the floor in terms of asking the first question? It's the time of the day when everybody feels that it's after lunch and it's time to be quiet. So, if there are no questions, I will start asking you to take the floor. So, do prepare. So, who will want to take the floor first? Please go ahead. Thank you. If you like to come here, because I think while we are figuring out, yes, this works. This works for the moment. And if there is a problem, I will repeat. Okay, I will repeat it. If you just okay. I mean, I'm not going to paraphrase what Ashley said. I'm going to say what I think. It's a root-based approach is when you look at the situation of refugee from the start to the moment where they seek asylum because they cannot go back. So you have to start by working to address the root causes of movement. Why people move? And I mentioned in the morning in the speech that I made that you have to look at how you build peace, how you build up institutions, how you prevent conflict happening, how you address inequalities that sometimes are at the core of the conflict. So when talking about a root-based approach, starting with the country of origin, is ensuring that the root causes that either have led to movement, they are addressed so people can go back home and in safety and in dignity, or or that if people have moved or before they move, that there are interventions taking place to ensure that before movement starts, before conflict erupts, there is a process of reconciliation in a society which prevents conflict arising, communal violence, and people living. Because quite often in crisis, we can see it's rare that you have a situation which is erupts in an unexpected way. Quite often we see that the conflict is which leads to displacement can be the result of discriminatory practices, for example, that might be in the country, of grievances between different groups around access to opportunities and equality. So that's what it meant by a whole of root approach, where you because if you don't look at the circumstances in the country of origin, you can never ensure that people can go back. And for most people, this is the only option available, and it's also the option that the only option they have got. People fundamentally, whenever we ask people what they want to do, they always we hear that their dream is to go back home. So the root-based approach allows us to look at the conditions which enable people to return or not to leave to start with. Okay, so another question, but it's not me to answer. Please address to the panel. Yes.
Ma'am, what do you mean by not discriminating SLM situation that you're talking about? Because I mean, a perception that all the SLMs that based on their origin or anything, right, they would be definitely discriminatory initially because of the, if it is in their country, definitely they would love to support their people and not let anyone come in. So in that situation, what do you mean non-discriminatory SLM situation that you're talking? Can you just
Sorry, can I ask you to explain a bit more? I'm just trying to understand what is your question that we will give asylum on the basis of discriminatory practices? Is that what you're saying?
You said that SLM practices there will not discriminatory. There will be no discrimination while SLM is systematic something that it's going to be. So in
Yeah.
that case, you mentioned about it being a non-discriminatory.
Yeah, asylum by its nature should be non-discriminatory in the sense that it's a humanitarian practice, right? So, what is the word humanitarian means that it has to be based on the fact that you're a human being, which is a point which was addressed in the first session also today. So, there is nature of asylum is humanitarian. So, when we call UNHCR, we're not a human rights organization, we're a humanitarian organization. We work on the basis of neutrality, you know, and there's a principled approach. So what I'm saying is that I will not give you asylum only if you are from an XYZ religion or an XYZ tribe. I will give you asylum because you match the convention grounds that you are being persecuted in your country of origin on the basis of race, political opinion, membership of a social group, or whatever. So it cannot be that there will be discrimination between people who are similarly placed. To give you an example, from the Supreme Court's judgment in, it was to do with, if you're aware of this judgment, which was Indrasani versus Union of India, in which the court said that to treat equals unequally is discrimination. If two people are similarly placed and we treat them unequally, that is discrimination and it violates Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions? I think there is one more.
So when we talk about mixed movement of immigrants and refugees, so why is that even after the RDA system that is already there? So why is that even more prevalent? Because I think in this session I haven't seen what are the challenges that are overpassing this RDA system that is already. So is it something that UNHCR has given, or is there already something with us? Uh,
Mm, Sorry,
Refugee-
RTI.
No,
Sorry.
refugee status determination.
Yeah, RSD. Yeah,
Yes.
RSD. Yeah, yeah.
So even after that system, why is it that the mixed movement is more happening? Because
So mixed movement is happening, and RSD is an effective answer, one of the effective stages of an effective answer to it. Refugee status determination is a part of an effective asylum system. But the asylum system comes into place while the mixed movement is already happening. People are already moving for economic reasons, for social reasons, because of climate change, because of disasters, because of persecution and conflict. So people are already moving. So mixed movements are already there. And they're complicated. And an RSD refugee status determination helps us determine who amongst these is a refugee and therefore in need of international protection, while the rest are not in need of international protection. they could still avail the protection of their country, and RSD helps us determine that XYZ person is a refugee and is therefore cannot be sent back to their country of origin.
In that case, how are we going to have a uniformity about the countries practicing system that you are talking about? So definitely the uniformity that your organization. So how are you as an organization trying to make this uniformity among all countries following this system?
So basically, I think if I have understood his question correctly, so he's asking about why there no parity between nations with respect to RSD. I think that comes out from a little bit of misunderstanding. There is a very determined SOP with respect to RSD status. Implementation may vary, but the status remains still the same legally.
So, yeah, continue my session as well. Yeah. So I'll take this question and then continue with my session as well. And once again, thank you very much. And today it's going. I think it's a very heavy dose of refugee law has been poured out here, and students are overwhelmingly trying to understand the jargon, the nuances of refugee law. Simply to understand that, like what our friend Pawan is asking, very pertinent questions. That questions of pure international law, and also the state supposed to take care of all these things. Let me put it like that. The first question he asked about that, when we are giving asylum to the refugees, first one has to understand that it is the mere sovereign prerogative. That one has to understand. And it is a determination of the refugee purely based upon the refugee convention. And that is where Anshudeep was talking about that, the convention prerogatives. We have that, the article 1, exclusively defines. She read out that particular article in the afternoon session. And if you are falling on that particular status, obviously, being a part of refugee, the state will determine and provide you that refugee status in the country where they are hosting. Okay, irrespective of their origin, irrespective of their religion and whatever it, but you have to fall in that particular place. There, here comes to the question of whether I am being a party to the convention or not. The problem in here in India, India is not a party to the refugee convention, and we do not have the legislation. We do not have that problem, policies with regard to it. But without legal framework, India is hosting millions of the refugees. That is where the problem coming. If I speak a little politically, when 1950s the Tibetan refugees have come to India, India has given a very warm welcome, and they have given the refugee status to many people. And subsequently, when we have the problem of Sri Lanka, they hosted. Still, there are many people. And now, when it comes to the today's refugees, like they're crossing the border from the Rohingya and in Myanmar, the government has little difficulties saying that no, they are exclusively a part of a problem and they are threat to the national security. Hence, we are not going to allow them. Even Supreme Court went into the extent of asking them to deport. This is what's happening. Why that particular problem is happening? Because we don't have the law. We don't have the legal framework. That's why in the morning session, Dr. Parivalan has told about that. We have that global compact on refugees. We have the global refugee forum. They're coming out with the prospectively very good principles, but why it is not able to percolate down because of the state's attitude. So that's the problem. And now coming to the discrimination, the discrimination is solely based upon the sovereign prerogative. Let's take it, I'm not attributing anything to the UNHCR, this academic thing, and I just want to take this issue. Like let's look at that, we have an NRC. NRC is a very contested thing between India and many people. The reason being, if you look at that, this, the whole exercise of NRC led to the making people statelessness in a one overnight. 5 lakh people, half a million people in the northeastern part of India, because when NRC was adopted, the government of India has asked the people to prove your citizenship in this country by way of these many documents. Most of the local people, they don't have the documents, and when they are not able to present those particular document, and they were declared as a non-citizens. They were not become a citizen of India, though they were living ages, even including native Assamese, because they don't have the documents. They never think of having the documents. Okay, that poses the greatest threat. If I bring that issue to all of you, is that NUJS Calcutta, NLU Assam, and some other universities have a refugee clinic, and they helped actually these 5 lakh people, and participating in this legal pro bono work and getting all the document and making them to submit. A lot of students have worked. That's what morning Ms. Siani was talking about, that what are the opportunities for the last students. Refugee clinic, and they did a tremendous amount of job during the time of 2018 and 2021. Okay, this is what. So now, moving from there, when India's Citizenship Amendment Act was amended, and they said that we are only giving to the people those who are having persecution, particularly based upon the religion, that we cannot attribute to the UNHCR. Okay, that is only the state of India decided that we are amending our Citizenship Act, and we have this sovereign prerogative of accommodating the people. These kind of people, those are coming from these countries, in neighboring countries, if they have well-founded fear of being persecuted based upon the definition given in Article 1 of the Refugee Convention, if they belong to a XYZ religion, and then we are going to give the citizenship status. This state has done it. Okay, so this is how the state generally does it when they don't have the sound legal principle. What UNHCR says that no, we have to be in act in neutral and impartial manner. We have the principles of non-refoulement, where it is a customary principles of international law. We all agree with that one, and even we go to the extent of saying that it is a jus cogent principle, a peremptory norm of international law. So hence, the states must not send them back when they are in the well-founded fear of persecution. It should be based upon your customary principles. So in India, we have all this beautiful principles like Atiti Devo Bhava. When a person comes to your home, you should not send them back. You can accommodate them. India was the same practice. Okay, but India for practices that one, that's a different, it's a sovereign prerogative. But whereas UNHCR, they have the different mandate based upon the convention, and they will follow the convention. What they preach and approach was that one, when you are determining the status of the refugees, you have to see whether they are falling in the part of convention, and we have the protocol. So this is what they have to do. That is where they were talking about the non-discriminatory practices while determining the refugee. And what is the mandate of UNHCR in India? They generally participate and assist the government in determining the refugees. Okay, so this is what happens. I hope, though I've taken a little long, maybe I'm trying to give you a little clarity on this. Is it clear? Okay. So, but still, you may have question. We can discuss. This is not the forum. We'll try to discuss because, as I told you, a lot of overwhelming knowledge of refugee life has been, poured today. It's coming. Okay, so it is a lot of people. It's a first time they are even listening to that refugee, what is that? A global refugee compact, global academic networks, and all these things. We are talking today. It's first time people are coming to know. Anyway, so coming back to that, I will take the liberty of just talking about the topic which I'm supposed to speak. That is mixed movement and way forward. That is what, and I just want to give. Maybe I'll take in very few minutes. I don't want to take the extra time until they set up the system and our online speakers are ready. I'll just take and wind it up my speech on that. Number, let me take two anecdotes while we were working with a humanitarian agency. In one fine morning, we get a call, a little bit of panic call. from a friend like Parivelan and his hostel mate. We were all living in a JNU hostel, and the hostel mate, he belongs to Sri Lanka, and two of his nieces were deported back to India, and they were detained by the immigration authorities in India's international airport, that is Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi. And around 5:30, our friend Parivelan has got a call, and he called me. I was working in ICRC during that time. He said that I am going to send a person. Can you help me to him to do something? And that person came to my office, and though it was not our mandate, there are two girls of Tamil origin. Yeah, Manoj sir is here. Can you hear me? Yes, Manoj sir, can you hear me? Sir. Can you guys speak there from there? So, sir, Manoj sir. Manoj sir, can you hear me? No, it's not. Hello, Manoj sir, can you hear me? Manoj sir, can you hear me? Yeah, but they have to listen. Manoj sir, can you hear me? Maybe you can give me that. Sudhir, just tell from there. Maybe ask him to wait for 5 minutes if possible. It's little. Sudhir, talk to maybe Avil sir. Talk to him, ask him to know. Still, we are working on that. Okay, so let them work. Still it is a little bit of problematic. So let me just complete this anecdotal story. And that person came and he narrated the story that the two of his nieces were detained and they were sent back to the India, and they were in detention center of Indira Gandhi International Airport, where they were under the custody of the immigration authorities. So suddenly myself and other people as a friends, we went to that immigration authority, and they explained the story that these two girls, they were from parts of Sri Lanka, Tamil origin, and they come to India because Tamil refugees were coming to India during those days, and they were living in the camps. When they were living in the camps, there are two touts, middlemen, promised them that they are going to be sent to Canada to meet their friends and in-laws and resettle over there. So somehow they collected 2 lakh rupees. They gave it to the touts. And what the touts have done, they have taken these two young girls, aged around 18, 20, something like that, and they went by train and bus into Nepal. From there, they went to Thailand, and Thailand they were confiscated and they were sent them back to India because they were saying that they are from India. And when they came to India, they were not having any kind of documents except a fake passport, which was created in Thailand and which is having that some Indian related stuff. And they were detained. Now these authorities trying to deport them back to Sri Lanka, and these girls were profusely pleading that they don't want to be sent because once they sent to Sri Lanka, they will undergo all the kinds of persecution and trauma, etc. Let's look at that. This is situation where a typical situation of like what since morning we have been discussing, a refugee problem mixed with other movements. And these two girls, when they came to the refugee camp, they registered and their status was not determined. They were not given the refugee status. And meanwhile, they wanted to leave this jurisdiction and go elsewhere. They were falling to prey of the human traffickers, and they went to some different jurisdictions and they were deported back. So this is what exactly they were narrating that these mixed movements people, they use the same channels of the asylum and they try to get trapped because of no clarity in the legal system. So this is some of the examples which I can take. Another anecdotal story is that one, a small boy who is 12 years old was trafficked from Nepal by the human traffickers, and he was caught, and he was taken into custody by the Delhi police, and they were submitted to the juvenile home. And boy cannot understand any of the language. Subsequently, they reported to the High Court committee, and during that time, the High Court committee on juvenile justice, headed by one of the judge, and he called us since we were very close to them. Yeah. So now he says that how we can help that boy to reach them back to the place where he has come. So this is another classic example. The boy is in a fallen prey to the human traffickers. So now the mixed movement, what we are talking today, it is not only refugee problem, it is a migration, immigration, economic problem, human trafficking, and also Dr. Sudhakar has told about that, human trafficking, we have the UN conventions, etc. So all these things, we are in the crossroads of this human problem. And Dr. Srinivas will tell you that. He always says that during economic globalization, the idea of the economic globalization is that it's a free flow of the goods, services, and the capital and the human. When the capital, finances, and services are concerned, is no problem. The states are very happy. But when it comes to the human movement, then there itself comes to the problems to the global north countries. That's what Dr. Sudhakar explained to you, how there is a disparities on addressing the problems of the global south by the global north. And what I'm trying to discuss the two important points. What is the way forward? And the way forward, what I'm suggesting, only two things specifically. Number one, like Pawan also asked that, when we are talking about that so much problems are there, where is the uniformity? It is highly difficult to get that, universal application of this refugee conventions and the problem, the principles of refugee law, because the states are not ready to take. Let's look at that. I'm being a bit critical about that entire, global north approach, the advanced countries approach. When people, those who are emerging out of the Ukraine crisis, they were given immediately a refugee status. When people are emerging out of from the West Asian crisis, they were not given that same status. So this is where disparities comes in. And now how the international is supposed to deal with? The international is dealing, asking the states, you must not have that kind of, divergence of, treating of people, those who are emerging out of the problems. So this is what they say that. But do we have answer? We don't know. That is what still we are negotiating. Now today we have, my approach is that entirely different. That we have seen in the refugee law itself. We have 1966, and we have the Bangkok Principles of International Human, the International Refugee Law, adopted by the Asian and African Legal Consultative Organization. And the Bangkok Principles gives a much wider emphasis on the various aspects of addressing the problems of the refugees, those who are flowing from the Asian and African continent. That we maybe know this is the time we need to revive the ALCO dialogue on the refugees as well as mixed migration. That is one suggestion which I want to offer. The second one is that we also have the Organization of African Union, erstwhile, today is an African Union. In 1969, they have the very beautiful regional arrangement for that, very expanded regional phenomena, and having more inclusion in the definitional aspects of the refugee. Who is the refugee? Here we have only 5 characteristic features, those who are undergoing that problems as defined by the 1951 convention or 67 protocol may be given the refugee status, but whereas it's an African convention is concerned, it's a much wider. So taking the cue from there, what I'm trying to argue that regional mechanisms may be the better solutions for the regional refugee crisis and migrants problem. That could be, it may not be an answer, but it's maybe a way out. That's what I could look at it that. Like while I was working in a project with UN project in School of Oriental and African Studies about the problems to the Sudan. And they said that Sudan was undergoing the problems of the genocide that was carried out by the Western media, but the local media has a differently orchestrated saying that no, it is not. And professors like Muhammad Mamdani of Columbia Law School says that no, it is not either of these problems, but it is nothing but a property dispute between the various ethnic population of the Sudan, South and North Sudan. Various dimensions have come. So the arguments which we included over there, why can't we strengthen the regional approaches to give the solutions for the problems of Sudanese and the refugees, those who are emerging out of the Sudan? That was a kind of conclusion what given. That is, why can't we regional human rights approach, maybe regional refugee approach can be better suited, for the problems of even mixed movements. The last one is that today, since morning we have been talking. Today we have the different stakeholders. I hope you are getting my point. And we have the non-state entities. Today we are talking about that global compact on refugees, asking that the corporations, companies, they have to extend their philanthropic activities. And with regard to that, uh, morning Sunod also has mentioned that states generally says that no, that corporate social responsibility funds should be only for our citizens, not for the immigrants or maybe migrant population or maybe the refugee population. But here, what my approach is that we'll go back and take the approach of the human rights and business approach of John Ruggie. He says that he developed a model rules. Reddy sir also said the states are very nervous to make that as a treaty. So that is why I'm saying that now we have articles on the state responsibility. And what articles on the state responsibility says that if any prohibited act is committed by the state, we may need to attribute the responsibility to them. In the same lines, attribution to the responsibility to the international organization. There is a convention was deliberated upon that. In the same lines, why can't we have an international convention, maybe regional convention, making non-state actors as a responsible to all these kinds of activities, whether they are involved in migration or maybe flowing of the refugees or displacement, whatever the activities they are involved. We know that a lot of mining, lot of other activities goes on, and why can't we make them responsible? And also, we can't think the states are the only actors today. The non-state actors have to be made responsible, which are the acts which are already prohibited by the international law. Why can't we make? That's a huge debate whether we want to give the same standing to the non-state entities like the states, what we are giving. That's a problem of international law. But the one way out is that we may need to have that regional thing. Last thing which I want to say, that we all have that bilateral investment treaty agreements. When we are talking about the bilateral investment treaty agreements and we are negotiating with bilaterally, global south countries must insist the global north countries and their industries must include these provisions of responding to the crisis of the mixed movement and refugee problem in the context of mixed movement. So maybe that we can do that. There is a clause like we are talking about that one of my scholars, she's working on the environmental and social governance. When we talk about that environmental and social governance, why can't we make the investment treaties as a tool for the purpose of fixing the obligations on the part of the non-state actors? That's the way forward. I'm thinking about the mixed movement. With this, I'll stop. If our online scholars are ready, we'll listen to them also. Thank you so much. I think most of you might have been very, very much tired, and we'll just take a few minutes from them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like, no, I can really go and so thank you very much, Professor Banerjee, Professor Srinivas. I can see as Sudhakar also. So thank you very much uh, for ensuring that I joined today. After hearing Banerjee and others, I believe that you can hear no. All right. So I have a huge challenge to say something which has not been said because more or less the wide coverage of energy and Srinivas and others already have. Let's start with the Sudhir. आवाज आ रही है? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear? Okay. So, all right. So, if I start with the historical progress of the international refugee law, in fact, it started with uh, the important development which took place in Russia in 1970. A decree was issued, and those Russians like now who were not in Russia at that particular time and close to the Jar, they moved to the other number of the countries. So decree was basically taken the nationality of Russians, those who are living in the different. So all of a sudden by the decree, they became a stateless persons, no state. So that was a big concern. So it was not the refugee, it was more a concern. So in 1922, the first High Commissioner, the, there was mandate given to the Dr. Fridtjof Nansen, and that is why we call in international law Nansen passport. So Nansen passport addressed the concern of the Russian populations. So Nelson issued the passport, and that has facilitated the movement of the stateless Russians. So some way, and that has been recognized in 1922, and they were allowed to live in the Union. The second case, which was also in between the Nazi Germany, there was more on the social and political upheavals. So first was the juridical aspect, second was the social and political aspect, and third was more important where we start moving towards the individual recognition of the refugees. And that we started with the International Refugee Organization, and later on now you have UNHCR, which was established, and then subsequently 1951, 19, UN Convention, and 1967. The message which I wanted to convey in all occasions, it was not that refugee is not a permanent problem. So whatever the measures were taken from 1922, even after 1951, it was always thought refugee is a temporary phenomenon, and it will go, it will be over. And that is why 1951 Convention had its two inherent limitations, which existed in 1951. One is the geographical limitations, and second is the temporal limitations. So 1951 Convention, when it applied retrospective, it said that prior to the 1st January 19. So refugee issue was never thought will become a huge problem in the global level later on until 1951. So those who were engaged in the draft of the 1951 Convention and other development, they always uh, talked about it's a temporary phenomenon. It's largely because of the First World War and Second World War. It's going to be over. It's never over. In fact, it's there. Today we have more than 130 million. In fact, refugee populations have declined, and we have more internally displaced, displaced persons are there. So we have IDPs, huge number of population, because the cause for the refugee has moved. So largely the new kind of movement which is taking place linked with the conflicts. Like Professor Banerjee also highlighted in his presentation how the Ukraine and Russia. So like when it comes to the uh, meeting the Russia, they did not go into the uh, procedure which had been laid down for the recognition of the refugee officials. So once like no, every European states have opened their border. Recently the like ingredients are welcome without going in the nitty-gritty of the going to the UNHCR and applying for it. So indirect because they were more on the same block, same thing, and same culture. So some way culture assimilation it was easy, and more than 4 to 5 million Ukrainians they are still living in a different country. We have also seen the migration. The conflict leads to the migration. So nature has changed. So conflicts. The 1951 convention and subsequently 1967 protocol, which many speakers might have spoken already, but it's just for the students, I'm saying 1967 protocol simply remove two limitations which I mentioned. The first limitation I said, temporal and geographical limitation. So this convention became universal convention and it applies all the time. That is very important when it comes to this. But what we are witnessing, it's more migration, migration and persecution. Migration is largely is happening in the number of the conflicts as well. Professor Banerjee mentioned it's not the conflicts between two states or three states, except the two exceptions are there, Ukraine and Russia and then Israel and Gaza. This time the conflict is taking place more on the ethnic identity within the country. So people are moving from one place to the another place, and and that is the reason the populations of internally displaced persons have increased significantly. We have also religious persecution. So, like what happened last year in August in Bangladesh, a large number of populations. Before that, Bangladesh also used, received or welcome in a sense a large number of Rohingya refugees in one of the provinces they are living there. So Bangladesh, we must appreciate that Bangladesh Rohingya, we have very limited Rohingya refugees compared to the Bangladesh. So Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, they have huge number of refugees there. For last many years, they are living there with the support of the UNHCR. They are living there, and gradually they will be integrated. So incident, the political disturbance, political change, regime of change, change of regime in Bangladesh created a very disturbed situation, and number of Hindus moved uh, from Bangladesh to Indian territory. And see the interesting point. When it comes to the international law, and we find weaknesses in the international. And it's interesting to note, and I'm sure many colleagues might have noticed, when the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019, it has a clause which says the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 will be applied only to, it will give the benefits to the persons who had entered in India pursuant to the 31st December 2014. So Act was amended in 2019, but it had mandate to provide citizens like no all some benefits, or they can stay in India like no, if the persons are minorities, particularly from the Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. So Hindu minority. So then become like they will not be detained under the honor set. So then if they are without any documents. Anybody who enters in India without any documents will be taken 1946. But if Hindus they are entering or other like minorities in India coming from these three countries, they are protected by the Citizenship Amendment Act, and this is and it also Citizenship Amendment Act in the manner also facilitate quicker granting of the citizenship. So citizenship is available to all. If a person who stays in India for 11 years, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the practices, so citizen is not is denying citizenship to other religions. Everyone is entitled to get the Indian citizenship if he stays for the 11 years and then his application. So that is one. But these people, after Citizenship Amendment Act, Section 6, it says the 6 years of the state they will get the Indian citizenship. So then like no time period has been reduced in the Citizenship Amendment. So interesting to note, just recently a new notification has come and date has been extended. The date which was there from the no, 31st December 2014, it has been extended. Now the protection of the Citizenship Act, Amendment Act, the recent order of the Ministry of Home Affairs, it extended till the 31st December 2024 because of the incident which happened in the Bangladesh. So the local system, the domestic system needs to be strengthened. In protection, migration, displaced person, they have more protection through the domestic law of the respective country. Because when we go into the 1951 convention, it has its own limitation. It's not open for internally displaced person. It's not open for the persons who have failed to cross international border. So those who are living within the country, they have a protection of their own constitution, their own there. Of course, there are the changes which had brought in the European context. They are the originator of the 1951 convention. When it comes to the implementation, they have developed their own system under the European Union. They have their own directives under the 2004 for the government. So the regional mechanism is bringing over to international issue. So challenges are there, it becomes a very important issue, concern, but along with the refugees, migration, internally displaced person, environment, which is religious persecution within the country and outside the country. It's a the time has come. The survey in history for any regions so that Vanity mentioned about the backwards principles, like Button said, survey Button said it has to be also international solidarity is important. So some way to tackle the refugee problem, the complex situations which world is undergoing at a particular time need to be strengthened and there. I believe the mathematics in ICF, the guys in Chennai last year is here and a lot of issues we're going to be discussed. Something might have been discussed today and tomorrow and we may place some concrete suggestion before the UNHCR and the Ministry of Home Affairs how to strengthen the domestic mechanism for protection of the human being. I will not say refugees are human being. Those human beings for any reasons, for persecution or any reasons, they are become like they run away from their own country and enter into the third country. That is the more humanitarian elements needs to be focused, not to judge with them refugee and displaced person. So humanitarian approach is going to stay for longer, and every state has a responsibility to protect the citizens of any country because we are living in an era of cosmopolitans. We are not citizens of one country, we are citizens of the world. With this, I end here and would like to thank Mr. Banerjee, Professor uh, Anthony. Thank you very much for
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson, and very nice to see you online. And did you make comments? Yeah, online like this.
yes, yes.
I understand that the Spanish business will be a negative that is dog my micros down in Guyana, después los streamings Guru. So I can ask you to some concluding remarks. It's very difficult actually to capture just like the very limited interventions and on a topic is complex where the answers of how to speak movements are not straightforward. So I would like to leave with some words for the direction and saying follow up steps and feel the impact level. Was by the check was very addressing the phenomenon of mixing human sense trying to hiding humane responses. International scenes of justice and peaceful it is also I believe that was mentioned by pursuing and also paint you can different artifacts and their suggestions as we can be response instead to our and for the place to refer to the importance of humane treatment human intervention instead of discrimination importance of saving and opportunities being so that there can be decisions it's not so it's of the building up. I should not was recognized as important. We can understand we can sense that you know the best and still brings it to how deep correct and it's like one of the your context. So it's got it's like on the day and it's one of them what else you can provide things in this because the other continue to looking and to raise the number of successful challenges. Since this movement is a challenge of that not take time to make us for some time and also some future for myself to respond if you may which recognizes the different needs of different things that institutions to bring us travel to travel social for instance, guidelines people serve for instance of my paternity so very much actually recommend policies that they find themselves and they read the process of this. So thank you so that we are going to realize this the details of the performance of the thing.
Thank you, Ms. Sian. You have actually made my work easier by concluding what eminent speakers and panelists have already spoken in this particular session. So I'm left with no other job than to thank you formally and all the esteemed speaker and we are apologetic to you because would make you very frustrated because of technical glitch. But my dear for really appreciate us and still speaking and giving us chance to tell you. Uh, then this I would conclude this particular session. May I please ask Professor Banerjee to felicitate Professor Sudhakar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate the questions of the students since long you have been sitting and listening and new subject. A subject which you never may not have more about that language, jargon, and vocabulary. I'm sure today onwards you will still understand certain things. Tomorrow, when you encounter such problems, expect me to focus on that one. With this, you will maintain our dependencies and relationship with the this RNCRD, the chief of mission for taking time and still taking us for so long since morning. I'm still taking care of decisions and giving you sites. I'm also told that the solution and I was being
instrumental in bringing all of this social media on my social blog was meeting. And now, for everyone, church, it is a lot of impact against social in refugee organizations, in the collaborative and in how. And today, what we are going to continue very interactive session. The students will start by now. We're to totally have interaction to students and we're followed by the interaction to package and versus the law, the whole guideline for communities that we have come. With this, I also thank you now our mentor, Professor Lauch Masin, who is there in our institute for this inspired curriculum and the last value as mentor advisor to loss. He's always supporting. Whenever I ask him to listen to myself, it's a reason. And to come and speak to us. Even though you experiencing something, patient getting of fitness, and speaking from the source we are going to bring in here with a more attention to celebrate the one various aspects of the law here. So with this, sir, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you very much. And invite this session and tomorrow. Members and all of faculty members for this power will have both of tomorrow, everything we will see at security, students also will have especially because all of you are tired, even when you know, basics language is very tired. Tomorrow may become especially because of chapter. Come on, the faculty members, one thing going. So let's listen. Wow. Once I know what I'm doing in front of what sorry? What province if you know this in terms of your words, you know, someone I don't know my same person.